there's things that are sacred, and that is being present for kids, being present for my wife, giving them time as much as I do the job, because they're more important than any job. Even though I love my work, there's some things more important. I want them to know that.
This is Intentionally Ever After. Join intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek for a series of personal conversations and coaching sessions with various people about how living with intention shows up for them.
Greetings, everyone. I am very happy today to be talking to none other than the more famous of the two Bukartek brothers, Justin Bukartek. Welcome, brother.
Hello, brother.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
You are wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you here.
I am wonderful. You're breaking into my introduction a little bit.
Oh, I gotcha. I'm sorry. So in addition to being wonderful, would you kindly introduce yourself?
I don't know what else to say. You find me out in Colorado today, but soon to be moving to Oregon. That is kind of a big life change, and maybe bringing that up a little bit as part of the conversation. I am a proud father of soon to be two as well, which is pretty exciting. Proud dad, like traveling, like hanging out with my family, like listening to music. And I enjoy a good cup of coffee or a good drink.
Ooh, a good drink. What's a good drink?
Whatever. Anything. I don't know. Whatever the moment.
Marmalade? Hot tea?
It could be.
Marmalade. That's not a drink.
Whatever the moment calls for.
Nice. Okay.
I once, when I was a breakout speaker at a conference, I hate the traditional bios of, this is who I am, and these are all the titles I held, and these are all my degrees.
Right.
My bio said, my name, Justin Bukartek, works for the Boulder Office of Disaster Management. If you want to get to know him better, find him for a chat over a cup of coffee or a beer at happy hour or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
A little more personal.
Yeah. What was stupid is they didn't even use bios for that conference.
Oh, really?
They just took them out of the program. Oh. Yeah. It's an uninteresting side note.
It's noteworthy. It's related.
Part of a broader uninteresting story.
Did anyone take you up on that? Did they take you out for a coffee?
Oh, they didn't know. They didn't know to.
It ended up not.
I just sat there alone by myself.
Oh, jeez. But you were ready. You were ready.
Thirsty.
Oh, no. All right, man. Hey, let's get into this, shall we?
Yes, please.
All right. So you are here on Intentionally Ever After. What does it mean to you to live intentionally?
A lot of things, but it boils down to knowing what's important in your life and taking some actionable steps towards it and removing any barriers or obstacles. I just mentioned how we're soon to be leaving Colorado and moving to Portland, which is a big move. Joe and I grew up traveling. We're Rolling Stones and moved every 2 to 3 years. So forever, moving was just part of life. And I've been out here in Colorado for 10 years, which is 7 years longer than any other place I've lived in my life. So
that is absolutely wild.
It is wild. So I finally understand what it means to have roots, and also can understand how it's difficult for people to move and to have change in their life. It doesn't have to be a move, just any significant change. So it's kind of been an interesting journey these last few weeks, thinking about that and having a different mindset. So anyway, my example that I'm kind of talking around as far as intentionality is realizing that moving was something that we wanted to do as a family, and being here for so long, having the social network and great home and great job and things that we love about Colorado were these barriers that we not always use as excuses, but they were easy excuses to kind of lay ahead of what we really wanted in life. And it wasn't like we had to get out of here, but it was looking back at what we wanted as a family and why we wanted it. I'm just using the move as an example, but it's kind of realizing what's important. And it's not our house. It's not our access to the mountains. It's our desire for new adventures and new scenery and new cultures and being close to the ocean change. We wanted just kind of a change of scenery. And so I think trying to peel away the things that you have comfort in, which is good that you have those, but it's more so realizing what you want and taking away any of the excuses to get you there.
Yeah, and it sounds like the excuses get a little more comfortable or a little more at the ready the longer you've been in a place, would you say?
I would. Having just done it once long term.
Right.
Definitely makes it harder. And, with kids and like your job and financial security and all that sort of thing, I mean, that's something I think everybody can relate to. Kids right? There's retirement and there's like, the way that your employer wants to keep you with, your benefits improving as you're in your position, right? It's all these little things that, even little things like, your grocery store that you go to, where everything is on the shelf. So when you go in, you know exactly what you want. You can get in and out. You may even see the same cashier, something silly like that. But you have all these things in your life that and there's comfort in knowing, and there's discomfort in not knowing.
Right.
That's a little silly to say, but
I don't think so. I think that's as simply stated as that is. I think that's huge. I think that's real. I think that's why so many people don't make a major shift, whether it's a move or not, whether it's a change in job, whether it's, change in relationship, change in home, change in vehicle. I think there's a lot of those small reasons you gave, like knowing the cashier, or at least, being familiar with them, whether you know their name or not. How do you overcome all those little things, those mini reasons, to get to where you think you might want to go?
You do a pain gain exercise, what you do. Yeah. Nice. I had to throw a plug in there.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And for those who aren't familiar with that thinly veiled reference, what are you referring to?
Well, Joe, thanks for asking. All right. Well, Brother Joe had, and this actually, I said this was, moving was something that we were looking to do, the last few weeks, probably the last few months. I mean, and probably subconsciously longer than that. There was a job that I had an interview for late last year, and Joe introduced me to the pain gain, which is a simple matrix, essentially, where you take a look at one aspect of, in this case, a new job for me. It wasn't the move, because they can kind of compound on each other, all these different changes. But you pick one thing, and you pick all the pros and cons of, in my case, it was staying with my job, and the pros and cons of taking this new job. And you can add weight to it, I think. I mean, you can kind of go wherever you want, but it's a way to just formalize your thoughts, because Lauren and I were having lots of conversations, and they would spiral and quickly become disorganized. So yeah, it was just essentially an exercise to jot down all of the important reasons why we did or did not want to do something. You could put weight to them, you could count them up, but I think it paints a clear picture as to, or at least it starts the conversation around why you're actually trying to do things. And when it's written down, I think it holds a lot more weight than if you just mention it or think about it.
Awesome.
So if you haven't done the pain gain, check it out.
That's right. Yeah. No, it's a great tool. It's a great tool. And like you mentioned, it can be used for any number of decisions, right? And it's simply a way to get the ideas from floating around in your brain out in front of you. And in particular, if you have a life partner, you can get all of your thoughts out in front of you and have that discussion together.
And I don't know if you know this, Joe, but for this job that I did accept, I did a pain gain. And actually, Lauren did the pain gain first and then shared her stuff with me. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I did not know that, but that's great. That's really great. I love hearing that. Thank you.
Yeah. So
yeah, and it doesn't expire, right? You get to use it whenever you want for whatever you want. So it
is saved in my personal Google Drive now.
Nice. Google, not a sponsor officially.
No,
but
no.
Wonderful.
Forget Google.
That's great. So, well, obviously this move is a big, very intentional move for the both of you. You're feeling excited about it. I'm sure there's still mixed emotions around it. The other thing we've talked about recently is habits. and habit formation. And I'm curious, what's one change in habit that has had an exponential payoff for you?
Yeah, well, it's a different course, but it's a habit that was forced in some way. So we live up a canyon out here, and as we drive from like the main highway down in the flats up our canyon to the house, we lose cell phone reception, which is a great thing because it's a very windy, steep road. And if people are on the phone, you're just asking for an accident. So I'm glad they don't have a cell phone tower or two on the commute up and down. But, that actually forces you to have time by yourself. You could have the radio on or a podcast, right? But you're not on your smartphone device. You're not talking to someone. And for me, kind of going to and from work, to and from the house, it's a great opportunity to kind of just reflect or de-stress. It's just quiet time or alone time. So it's not a habit, but I would say one habit that's stemmed from it on my commute home is that once I get home, I don't suddenly pick up my phone. And I've subconsciously tried to stay off of my personal device as much as possible. I'm not going to say that I don't pick it up ever when I get home, but what I try to do is, keep it on the counter or something like that. Main reason being I want to spend quality time with my son and my wife, but particularly my son because of, he has to go to bed soon. So I have this very limited, narrow window of time that I get to kind of be all in with him. So yeah, I guess trying to force the habit of, no outside device during dinner and before and after, just so I can have quality family time, I think has been an exponential payoff. One of the drawbacks of going to the office is that, you don't have that time. And this is most people, right? Unless you work around the house and your kids are home, it's the quality of time you get with your kids for those that have kids. So that's one thing that I cherish is trying to be all in the mornings and then when I get home, that sort of thing.
Yeah. What does quality time with your son currently look like?
Lots of puzzles.
Yeah.
And construction. Yeah. He's really big into construction, building. He's a very creative mind like most kids do. So whatever he is doing, make-believe, just jumping in there and building a construction site. Or he's actually really fun to cook with now. He was our sous chef, but now he's the self-proclaimed chef and I'm his sous chef.
Nice.
So we had asparagus the other day and I was going to just keep the spears and put them on the grill because we were grilling some pork chops or something. But he said, "No, Daddy, I'm the chef. You're the sous chef." And he started cutting them into tiny, tiny little pieces.
Yeah.
I was like, well, honey, the sous chef actually can do this cutting for you. And he said, "No, I'm going to do it. I'm the chef." And it took 20 minutes for him to cut all these spears of asparagus.
That's awesome.
Into tiny little pieces. It was great.
Oh, I bet it was delicious.
It's just in my nature for 30 seconds. It was frustrating. It's oh my gosh, I need to put the asparagus on the grill now. And I didn't end up doing it because now they're all in tiny little pieces. But so we sauteed them on the stove. But anyway.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice pivot.
I'm spinning off a little bit.
No, not at all. Not at all. That sounds like some quality time spent. And, really about the quality, right? As opposed to, fitting it into the schedule of has to be on the grill now.
Yeah.
So I think that was a great pivot. And I think it's pretty normal.
It was much better.
Yeah. And you caught yourself, right? Because your initial feeling was oh my gosh, I got to get him on.
Yeah. But, and Joe knows me and my personalities and can relate.
We were cut from the same cloth. That is true.
We were.
Yeah, we did. We have a lot of the same original programming,
for better or worse.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. What have you said no to that has made a significant impact in your life?
I don't know. I'm going to kind of use the same answer because I don't have a different idea. I would say outside noise. And I've actually struggled with this in the last month. I think it's natural to carry things home with you if you're working, carry family issues or health issues someone's having. And I've tried to keep that separated from family time. Like I said, right now it's actually difficult. Lauren and I talked about it last night, how my head is in many places right now between leaving my job of the last 6 years and taking a new job, which is, a leadership position. So it's a very new sort of role for me, and moving So we have a new one coming in within 2 months. So there's a lot of these big life events happening in a short amount of time. So yeah, obviously there needs to be an outlet or forum to think about these and talk about them and deliberate or whatever, but trying to separate them so you have time to focus towards the important things that are right in front of you. It's something that I try to do intentionally. It's not always easy with all these other things, but I think maybe talking these things out, if someone starts a conversation about one thing, whether it's me or my wife, and there's a better time to have it. I'm just using the example of, spending time with Aiden before bedtime, right? Like just trying to be transparent, being a good communicator. Like, hey, let's talk about this later. We're cooking asparagus. We're cutting asparagus right now or something like that. So I guess back to the question, what have I tried to say no to is, I guess, this outside noise and trying to prioritize what's important, which I just said was, being all in during these short windows of time I have with my son and trying to maximize that time. So then, the other stuff, it's important, it needs to have a place, but trying to separate the two.
Is it about being present? Is that what I'm hearing?
It is. It's a good way to put it. Trying to be present in the moments that are important to you. So, obviously I've put, family time high on a pedestal, which I think everyone aspires to do. So yeah, if there's other things that can be pushed off, phone call, chores, work stuff, you can plug in later. I think trying to be present to whatever's important to you. Yeah.
That's great. When do you find you're most successful with that? When is it easier than other times?
I don't know. I think it just happens naturally. I mean, to continue down this example, when I get home, I just get so excited when I come in and whatever Aiden's doing, it just puts a smile on my face, right? So if I'm having a bad day at work or was thinking about something else, he's really good at grabbing your attention and, you get excited about whatever the heck he's doing and however silly it is, right? So his gravitational pull is quite strong. So to me, I think it's quite easy to do whenever I come in after work. So I guess to answer your question, you come home from work and you open up the door and, he's building a construction site or he's painting. He shows me his paintings. It's pretty easy for me he just grabs my attention. So
it's a great thing to have.
Yeah, it's great. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it by any means, but he
sure.
He makes it pretty easy most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, what area in your life feels just about perfect?
My family career balance. I think this is.
What's the secret?
Well, I think it's, you ask 100 people and probably 99, if not 100 people will say that they want that balance if they have a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're single or just,
Sure.
have a spouse that, you're very career oriented, then it's going to look different. For folks with children, I think, that's always something people aspire to. I feel I do a great job. I feel like I don't do a perfect job. I think, the perfect world would be you don't have to work and you just can spend time with your family all the time. So there is always that balance. But I feel what's perfect right now is having the ability and the time available to put towards being present. Back to your statement earlier. That feels perfect right now. And, one of the things that is scary about us moving and me taking a new job is creating an imbalance in that. I mean, that's one of the huge things on our pain gain. That was a pain. And it's not guaranteed, but it's an unknown. And, professionally, as you climb up a career ladder, typically that means more responsibility and more time. So, that's an area of concern that I think of anything else. I mean, move aside, new house, new scenery, new things to do. I think those will all be fine and those will be exciting and fun in many ways. The one thing that I am wanting to keep a check on, and I've actually talked to Lauren about, is, keeping me in check about the time that I spend between the family and the kids and my job. And if there is more work, which I expect there to be, especially, initially, you want to, always come in and give a first impression, all that sort of thing, prove your work ethic and, yada, yada, yada. Being able to kind of still balance the time that you have with the family. And if that means, sacrificing a Netflix series at night so you can work, but then in that time between getting home and bedtime, you have all that time with your kids still. So that right now feels perfect to me. That's the scariest thing that I'd be leaving, is that balance, that I feel that we have a very good balance right now. And that's one thing that I am looking to intentionally maintain, and even having a conversation with my soon-to-be supervisor about how that's important to me. So,
right.
Yeah.
Like you said, this is a system you've established and you've fine-tuned and polished along the way so that it is currently just about perfect. And so it is natural to be very concerned about this as you shift into the unknown, right? And you've put it out there. It's on your pain gain, like you said. You've already essentially put an accountability system into place by saying, hey, Lauren, keep me in check, So what I'm curious about is the idea of balance, keeping it balanced as you move forward. You already have maybe an idea of one possibility of, checking that Netflix series or whatever as one possibility. How will you know that you're being successful right out of the gate when you start this new job? What will that look like?
It's a good question. I don't know. I haven't actually thought about that. Ask it in another way.
Okay. So imagine that you have just come back from your first full week at your new job and you are feeling great. Aiden's at home and he has that gravitational pull and you're ready to, get working on some asparagus in the kitchen. And you are fully able to be present because you're able to disconnect from work and you feel like you've done everything you can at work. How is that possible? What have you done to make that possible?
Oh, okay. Gosh, not to drop the word intentionally, but you have to be intentional about doing that. So, as literal as trying to get home by a certain time because there's a bedtime, at a certain time, and you have that window where you can't control time. You can keep the kid up late or whatever, but it's identifying what those windows of opportunity are. And I feel like that's just, in your subconscious right now. Like for me, it's very subconscious and it's part of my routine that it's kind of carved that out. So it's making sure you just make time for that. It's answering the question very logistically, like very matter of fact about being home by a certain time. So I don't know. I'm kind of stumbling down the stairs awkwardly with the question, I think, but
no, I think that's fine. How would you know? You haven't done this yet.
Yeah.
So let's just imagine how that might look. What are the decision points along the way as you're engaged in your workday at this new place, knowing that you have these windows of time?
Yeah.
I think that's a great way of organizing it.
Sure. It's just kind of organizing your life in a way that you can set yourself up to leave at a certain time.
Okay. Specifically?
It's just kind of, if I know I have a half hour commute or an hour commute or whatever I'm going to have, it's going about your day to make sure that you're getting out the door by a certain time because you want to be home by a certain time. I guess back to maybe the original question, what I initially was going to say was it's a feeling, right? If I feel that even if I get home and have like the same amount of time, I know this is kind of maybe a silly example, but like if I feel like my family time is getting impacted, it's not something that maybe can be quantified, but it's, maybe the family needs more daddy time. Maybe I need more time with the family because of whatever reason. So I guess my barometer when we do have this move and I do try to maintain that balance is sort of a feeling and what are the needs on both parties and trying to be clear about making sure that, if it's not me or if it's on the other side, compensating by, doing something extra special. So, if your balance right now is 50-50, but then, if it becomes 60-40, I don't want it to become that, but if it does, then making sure that, that now that you only have 40% of your time, that it's special. It's a even more special 40%.
What do you want to make sure you insist upon when you start this new job?
Oh, just exactly what I'm talking about and the value I put on my family time. And if that means that, I'm optimistic that, especially today, you can kind of flex your time a little bit and do some work at night. But there's things that are sacred, and that is, being present for kids, being present for my wife, giving them time as much as I do the job, because they're more important than any job.
Yeah.
Even though I love my work, there's some things more important. I want them to know that.
All right. How about you? Time for you. What does that look like moving forward?
Time for me. What is that?
That's my question to you.
What does my time look like to me? I don't. What are you asking?
You just referenced, we're just talking about time for your family, time for your son.
Uh-huh. Oh, self-care.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that what you're talking about?
Sure.
Oh. Are you asking how I would look after myself?
What's your plan moving forward? New move, new you, or same you?
Yeah, no, it's not going to be the same. Well, some things will always be the same. But I'm actually excited for new opportunities that this move will bring.
Such as?
So for all the listeners out there, every other time I talk to my brother, he always tries to get me to go running. He's an avid long-distance runner. And I used to be until about 10 years ago, and then I stopped, and I have had no interest in running again. But Joe still asks me how I'm doing and whether I went running, or I need to go running. Let's do a road race. So there's this constant nag coming. Anyway, I say that because I'm lying. I do have some internal interest and desire to start running again. I can't run where I am because I live on a freaking mountain.
Yeah.
I'm at 8,000 feet and I can't breathe. I use that as an excuse. Sure. That's an obstacle that I can overcome. I can drive down the hill and go running. It's not easy. Anyway, my roundabout answer to the question around time for myself, I'm looking forward to not living in a mountain and not living at 9,000 feet or 8,000. I don't know why I keep saying 9,000. I'm not that high. But different extracurriculars. I'm excited about, potentially running again. I'm not going to get Joe too excited.
No, too late.
But being able to literally walk out my door and go on a bike ride, go on a jog, go to the beach. There's a lot of these new things that, as a family will be fun. But me personally, I think there'll be some new hobbies that I partake in, which is exciting.
Cool.
So
that is exciting. And it's exciting for anyone potentially going out to visit you as well. Yep.
Yeah. Joe is going to sign up for a 50K ultra marathon after this in Portland.
I've already got the page pulled up. I'm just waiting to click.
Just so you know.
I was just waiting on your answer to that question. That's all I was waiting on.
I'll be at the finish line for him with a cup of coffee. You got it.
Brother, who is someone you admire and what do you admire about them?
I thought about this. So I actually was reading an article about this guy last night. So it's not something I've always admired. I didn't know who he was. Eugene Goodman.
Right.
Do you know who that is? Did you hear about him?
Right.
Eugene Goodman is the guy. He's the Capitol police officer that was kind of instrumental in bringing a lot of those rioters the other day. Like, he's credited with, I think it was Mitt Romney. He kind of got him to safety. He was pulling these folks towards, a certain direction of the building to keep them away from the Senate chambers, to allow the vice president out, those sorts of things. Yeah, I was, glued to the coverage like many others that day, like a month ago or whenever it was. And then video of this guy surfaces later. You don't think anything of it at first, but I was actually reading about, I was reading about him, but I was watching a video of this, I think it was an NYPD detective or something that was narrating this whole video and kind of just talking through why this law enforcement officer was doing what he was doing. And it was pretty cool. I guess I admired that. What he did was great. I think what I admired is that, you've never heard of this guy. You might hear the name again, but probably not. In a year, you'll kind of forget about him. But just seeing him on, follow-on interviews and stuff, his humility and his selflessness stick out. And that's something I always admire in people. Like Pat Tillman is another one, obviously more famous, but someone that, has a lot of great things around. In his case, he had a rich NFL career, and he was able to look at what was important to him, and that was serving his country with his brother. And he had the humility to just kind of drop off the face of the earth. And I think he had a contract for some ridiculous amount of millions that he, didn't sign just to go into the armed services. So, I think the qualities of being humble and being selfless are two things that I just admire about anyone. And when you hear these stories about, quote unquote, common people or simple people, but, being put in these situations and having, a profound effect, I think is just something that continues to be really cool to see. So
yeah,
today it's Eugene Goodman. That's my guy. He's pretty cool.
Your guy.
But,
that is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's millions of people like that where sometimes you hear their stories, sometimes you don't, but I appreciate the humility and the selflessness that they have, whether they're, public safety or anything. It's pretty cool.
That is cool. Kind of it reminds you of your faith in humanity when you hear stories like that.
It does. It makes you want to be a little better person, right? At least for me. I mean, probably most people, though. You see that and it's like, oh, you're good. You're just a good person. So
yeah,
what can I do better?
What do you imagine some people admire about you?
Well, in leaving my current job, I just put a notice out last week. So this one's a little easy to answer because, you get not outpourings, inpourings. Is that a word?
Sure. It is for now.
You get the opposite of outpourings of emails.
Mm-hmm.
They come into me.
Okay. They're still outpourings, but they're outpourings towards you.
Outpourings from them to me.
Yeah.
An influx. Let's go there.
So people admire your use of vocabulary, clearly.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I made a lot of good friends and relationships, which, go back to the very first question is really hard to leave when you not only leave a job, but leave a location. So that was obviously something that was something that you struggle with before and after you make the decision. But anyway, I, sent an thank you, farewell email, the type. Try not to, write a book because, people don't need to read a book about you. You'll keep in touch with the people that are important and that want to keep in touch with you and you them. But I did get a lot of emails back, which is always nice. People sharing their personal contact info and things like that. But, what people admire about me, I think, kind of what my job is currently. I run our emergency operations center during disasters. And it's a really dynamic, chaotic, crazy environment. Lots of unknowns, lots of life safety, community-wide impacts. And our center is one where everybody, whether you're public safety or a nonprofit or your public information, someone that deals with animals, people that transport folks, everyone comes to this facility now, kind of virtually because we can't congregate in large numbers, come together and they have to work together. I think what people have admired about me is the way that I can facilitate different groups and make them work together and kind of put them on a common sort of goal. The more you work with people, it becomes easier the more experience you have. But I think what people have admired about me is being able to meet people where they are and starting there. Because there are folks in this sort of disaster system that can come in and have a lot of comfort because they may have done it before, but you always get someone new that's never been in there. You can always tell who they are. And I think one thing I've been able to do well is to make them, put them at ease, make them comfortable, and not allowing them to fail. And I think that's pretty important with any sort of thing that you do is meet people where they are and understanding their perspective. And then whatever it is, being able to kind of facilitate, communicate, and work together. I think that's one thing that folks have admired about me. So there you go. Yeah.
That sounds pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Sounds pretty admirable.
Yeah. It's fun to do. Makes it easy.
Yeah.
It's fun to do.
Yeah. Sounds also like something you could potentially take with you and will likely take with you in your next adventure.
I hope I can take that with me. Yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed the time as I usually do when we get to chat. Is there anything you'd like to share that's on your mind or something that matters to you? Any other thoughts you'd like to share with me, the listeners?
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it.
Jeez. That was very eloquently stated.
Wow.
That's right. Now I'm going to have to see what kind of trademarks I have to go through to, actually play this part.
Oh, I probably didn't get the quote. Exactly right. So you're safe.
All right, good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I will say in seriousness though, Ferris Bueller aside, that, 10 years has gone by really, really quickly living here, and my aspirations to have some new change of scenery and new location, new job have been around for a long time, and time moves really, really fast. And so going back to this whole conversation about being intentional, even when you're intentional, which I've tried to be, it can still take a long time to jump off of that cliff or that high dive and make a splash into whatever you want to do and change in your life. So, joking aside, I would say that I would just encourage folks to make that leap, because if you don't, then it's a long time staying at the top of that high dive, and you may just, climb the ladder back down again. I don't know. That's stupid to say.
No, I think it's great.
But, yeah. I mean, I guess it's crazy to think how long it took us to finally get to this point, but we've wanted this for so long. And obviously, we're having a second kid, and that was number one, which kind of it was our priority. So I guess we're kind of being intentional in that regard. But we've always put up these barriers. We've been guarded about all these other things. And now that we're finally made the decision, pulled the trigger, it's pretty exciting. It's okay, well, that wasn't that bad. There's always a fallback plan. You can always go back to the way things were, I think, if things are really that bad.
I think that's interesting.
We can always move back here. We know what we're going to get.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of these things aren't the finality isn't set in stone, right?
Yeah.
You really could always go back if you wanted to.
And you don't want to go back to what you were, because why are you thinking about changing it in the first place?
Right.
You don't want exactly the way things were if you're even having these thoughts. So, I've thought about that, and, even with all the things that, are potentials of, not being great about the move for us and all that comes along with it, there's, we can always go back to the way things were, but we probably don't want to.
Excellent.
So
anyway.
anyway.
I appreciate it.
That's all I got to say about that.
All right, brother. Well, I'm excited to stay tuned for the next chapter. You got a lot of exciting things happening, but I appreciate your time and energy on this conversation as well.
I do. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
It's been fun to talk and share where we are right now.
Good.
So.
Yeah, for sure. And perhaps down the road we can check in again and give listeners an opportunity to hear some updates about how great things are for you.
They're going to be awesome.
They're going to be awesome.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Okay, Joe.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon, okay?
Talk soon.
This has been Intentionally Ever After, hosted by intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek. If you would like to have your own intentional conversation with Joe on or off the air, visit intentionallyeverafter.com. Thanks for listening.